that shows backdating. If we know that the ink was simply not available at a certain time, then we know that this was written before that time. Or some of the ink was not available, earlier. It was only like this kind of ink was only used or only manufactured, let's say, in the last year. Then we know this document was written only in the last year. And it's interesting. They actually once had, they claimed they discovered Hitler's diaries, things written by Hitler. And this is like, a major historical document. What was he writing? What was his diary? What was he writing in his diary? It's a very important thing. And they actually, one of the ways they proved it was a forgery was that, it's unfortunate that this actually fooled a lot of people, because they said, okay, well, we how do we know this is really his diary? Let's get some collected samples from Hitler. So they were sent, professional handwriting analysts were sent exemplars from Hitler. And they said, yeah, it's exactly the same. But they were fooled, because the people who sent them these exemplars were the people who did the forging. They forged the diary. They forged the exemplar. So, of course, the handwriting analysts said, yeah, it's the same. But anyway, one of the ways they proved it was a forgery is that the ink, they analyzed the ink. They realized the ink was, was only used from 1957 on, or something like that. And of course, Hitler committed suicide in 45 or so. So we were able to prove that the whole thing was a forgery. There were no diaries. Anyway, so sometimes knowing about the ink will tell you something about the question documents. Some companies, they actually deliberately put a chromatographic. They put a chromatographic marker in their ink so that they can easily identify their own ink. And they put a specific component in there that will always come out after, let's say, 3 minutes or something like that. So they'll always be able to tell which ink is theirs. And this is very useful, because let's say they change this thing every year. So this is very useful. We'll get the ink from the question documents, and we'll know what year or what time these question documents were written, and that can tell a lot about whether it's a forgery or not. We also analyze paper. Paper is made from cellulose fibers, from wood or cloth, because that's they have cellulose, right? The wood is made of a lot of cellulose, so that's where paper comes from. It's usually cellulose fibers with a glue kind of holding it together in the way that makes the paper. So a couple of things. Paper is sometimes made with a watermark. The manufacturer of the paper, they press on the paper so that it's called a watermark. Because sometimes if you make it all wet, you can actually hold it up to the light and see the watermark. Anyway, so people can identify their own kind of paper because they put a watermark on it so that they can see it, which paper is theirs as opposed to, let's say, competitor's paper. So sometimes paper has a watermark on it, but again, that's very useful. We know exactly the source of the paper. This can tell where this, let's say, this document came from. And again, it's very useful for ransom notes, because we want to know who's sending the ransom notes. If we know the paper they're using, we might be able to find him based on who bought this paper. Sometimes there's certain sometimes we can identify papers by specific fibers embedded. Like certain papers, they want to have a certain, let's say, a certain feel to it or certain look to it. So they put specific fibers in it to give it that feel or look. So again, we can take the paper, we can identify the paper based on these specific fibers. And also, under ultraviolet light, they will fluoresce differently. Different papers will fluoresce differently. This has to do with the glue that's used and somewhat of the cellulose fibers also that are used. So we can identify this paper by how it fluoresces. Compare this to the way this paper fluoresces as opposed to the way paper produced by a certain company fluoresces, and we'll be able to identify the source of the paper. Also, let's say you have a whole notebook there, a whole let's say it's a legal document or a contract of several pages, and they all fluoresce in one way, and one sheet fluoresces in a different way. One of them glows a lot, one of them glows a little. All of them glow, let's say pages 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 glow a lot, and sheet number 4 does not. Then we can pretty much suspect that someone put that paper in. That paper was never in the original document. Someone put it in there, and in order to get some benefit out of the out of the contract in that way. So again, this is one way of showing that to you and your eye and my eye, it's white. But to the ultraviolet light, it will fluoresce differently, and we can tell this paper was interpolated there illegitimately. So that's a lot about question documents and document examination. It's not a violent crime, but it is a crime, and therefore it is important to understand when learning the subject of forensics. Anyway, so a bit of a review: what you should know, what question documents are, exemplars, handwriting, know what is collected samples as opposed to requested samples, understand unnatural handwriting, how to avoid these problems when you get exemplars, know about printing devices, how to identify it, what might be a class characteristic there, what might be an individual characteristic, such as the blemishes from the rollers or something like that. Know how do you know about the uses of infrared luminescence or infrared, the way it reflects when you send infrared light onto it. How computers can use digital image enhancement to find certain problems written in a document and remove, let's say, obliterations. Know about indented writing, how it's used, chromatography of ink, and how that can identify ink or possibly identify paper using ultraviolet light. And here are some homework problems for those who have the textbook. You can look at these to get more practice, get more clear on various aspects of question document forensics.